Okay, now we can actually get into planting our seeds. But of course, we're going to need some supplies first. So, we're going to need soil, either seed starting soil or potting soil, some sort of spoon to scoop the soil with, containers or pots, labels, preferably plastic wrap, elastic bands, and a push pin or something pointy. Those three things go together. And newspaper for easy cleanup. Optional things would be a depth measuring stick for planting the seeds, I'll talk about that more later, gloves if you don't want to get your hands dirty, and a heating mat. But you'll really only need a heating mat if you're going to be starting your seeds in an area that's really cold, which I wouldn't recommend. For example, if you're going to go and start your seeds outside in a shed, it's probably too cold out there, so you're going to need a heating mat. But if you're starting your seeds inside your house, you're probably fine. Okay, so along with the other gardening supplies that we'll need to start our seeds, we also need somewhere to put our seeds. So I'm going to show you how I just set up my little plant shelf. I basically take an old tablecloth or something to put on top of this wooden bar cart situation, just to make it sort of waterproof. And so I basically just cut it out to the right shape and place it on the bar cart. Very self-explanatory, but I figure it'd be fun to watch me do this in top speed. But obviously you don't need to do exactly what I'm doing. Just you need an area in your home where it's warm, maybe it gets a lot of natural light. You just need a space that will be able to fit all of your seedlings. Wherever that may be in your house, that's where you're going to set up a shelf or table or whatever. The first year I started, I actually used my laundry room because it's warm in there, the heater's in there, people are constantly doing laundry, and so that was a good space for the seedlings. But again, if you're inside with heating, anywhere is usually alright. Now that we're done our shelf, we can prep our dirt. Or maybe you'd want to prep your dirt before you start setting up your shelf area so that it will have time. Okay, anyway, so the way you prep your dirt is either using seed starting soil or potting soil. Put it in a heat safe container, bucket, whatever. Boil some water, and once the water's boiled, pour it over the dirt. Okay, you don't want the dirt to be sopping wet, but you want it to be damp and saturated enough. And this basically sterilizes the dirt so that if there's any, bug eggs or anything like that, mold, anything in the situation, it will kind of kill the bacteria, germs, etc. Plus, the soil will be warm when you start planting in it, which helps with the germination. Just make sure you put something over top of the container to lock in the heat. So whether that's tinfoil or my bucket has a lid, so I did that. And let it sit for at least 20 minutes, I would say. And then don't start using it to plant until it's cooled down a bit. It can be warm, just not hot. Okay, let's talk container types. So I like to use these huge yogurt container tubs. I also have some of these black ones, and then these green ones, which are pretty standard, I feel seed starting containers, but they're really small. Now with these containers that you're going to use, or pots or whatever, you're going to want to think about as the seedlings start to grow, they will get bigger and you may have to up-pot them. However, you can up-pot them less if you start them in a larger container. Also, using plastic containers is better because you can reuse them. Just make sure that you sterilize them and that they're clean. Mine's are kind of dirty. But don't let yours be dirty because any diseases from past plants or anything like that could pass on to your new plants and you don't want that. With the containers, I also try to avoid paper or wood. So you may see people starting seeds in egg cartons, which is great and can be really good. I just find it gets moldy fast with the moisture and stuff like that. I try to avoid it, plus those are not reusable. Whereas plastic, you can keep reusing. I've also seen people use these seed starting kits that you can get at the store. I've heard mixed things about those, so I don't know. I've never tried them, so I can't really give my own opinion. I just buy dirt and I use that. Now with the labels, I make mine. I use like anything plastic. So I cut up my old lotion bottle, for example, and then just use Sharpie to write on it. I know you usually see like cute little popsicle stick labels, but I find that wood and paper attract mold a lot faster. So I try to avoid paper or wood products when it comes to seed starting. Plus, again, they will be reusable. Okay, now let's make a depth measuring stick. This is just to make it easier, so when you're planting your seeds, you know exactly how deep they should be planted instead of just eyeballing it, which can be helpful for new gardeners. So you can use like a straw. I just used some like takeout chopsticks because I didn't want to use my actual chopsticks, obviously, but just any kind of stick as long as you can draw on it. And basically I just take my ruler, look on the package of your seedlings or Google it as to how deep that certain seed needs to be planted, and then just put those markings on the stick or straw or whatever it may be. So then when you're using it, you can just poke it into the soil at that depth and plant your seeds. Obviously this isn't necessary, I just think, you know, for a first-time gardener, it can be helpful. Alright, let's actually start planting our seeds. So do not plant all your different kinds of seeds at once because they need to be started at different times depending on your frost date, which is why we figured that out in the first video. So the first year I did use seed starting soil, but after that I just didn't really find it necessary. I think potting soil is similar enough, and it also has more nutrients and holds water better because seed starting soil is mostly, I think, like coconut coir, and it dries out extremely quickly and you need to keep your seedlings moist. But it is a preference. It's kind of up to you, obviously, but I prefer to just use potting soil. And I'm starting off with strawberries. I'm starting my seeds for strawberries specifically in February because I find that strawberries take a really long time to grow enough to actually plant. I'm doing, well, I guess technically 3 different kinds of strawberries. One are the ones that I bought, but then I have 2 other sets from strawberries out of my fridge. And I don't know what kind of varieties those strawberries were, but whatever. I just wanted to see if I could grow them. Normally for my other seeds, I would only fill the container up halfway and then plant the seeds so that I can fill up the container as the seedlings grow. But strawberries are kind of different, so I pretty much almost filled the container to the top. Not too much though, so that they can have a little bit of like support from the edges of the pot as they grow. And then with strawberry seeds, planting them like under the dirt is just like not really necessary. If you kind of just sprinkle them on top of the dirt and then lightly push them in, that's really all you need to do, because the seed planting depth for most strawberries are just so minimal that it kind of isn't even worth trying to make holes to put them in. But if you want to, you can. So I planted 2 different varieties of strawberry seeds in the same container. So I have my fridge strawberries on one side and my alpine strawberries on the other. Now, after I'm done planting the seeds, I cover them with some plastic wrap, okay? Pull it taut using, I mean, I guess you could tape it if you don't have elastics, but as long as it's like tight across the top of the pot or container, and then I just poke holes in it with like a push pin. That way it creates a dome effect and helps the seeds germinate. Next is marigolds, and I mean, I guess you don't really have to plant marigolds this early. I just kind of wanted to because I do find they bloom rather quickly for me. These marigolds, I didn't buy them, these seeds, I just saved seeds from my mom's marigolds from last year, and I'm using those. So when a marigold flower dies, the like dried petals, there's a whole bunch of seeds attached to it. You will never have to buy marigolds again because they're actually really easy to grow. So I fill the containers about halfway with the dirt, and then I just kind of lay the marigolds on top and then cover them with a little bit more dirt because their planting depth is not very deep. So Next is broccoli, and I have had literally no success trying to grow broccoli for the past 2 years, but I'm gonna try again until I can grow it. I really don't know why it's so difficult for me to grow broccoli. Like, the seedlings, they'll grow and germinate sometimes, but then they will also, like, get stunted, and I don't know why, but they always get stunted. It's really annoying. Alright, on to tomatoes. I'm going to plant 4 different varieties this year, and hopefully they'll grow for me. Because with one of the varieties, I did not have success last year. Now, when you're planting seeds too, you want to plant more than one seed. Even if you only want one plant, like if you want one tomato plant, for example, still plant a few seeds. I always suggest, like, if you want one plant, plant 3 seeds. Just because you don't know if they're actually going to germinate. Again, even if you only want one tomato plant, maybe it's good to have 2 tomato plants, just in case during the seedling process something happens to one of them, you'll still have another one to plant in your garden. And in my containers, I like to make multiple holes for each seed, but you can technically plant 2 seeds in one hole if you really wanted, but I kind of like to spread them out, only because if all of them germinate, I don't want them to all just be in one spot, if that makes sense. Now, my tomato seedlings usually germinate almost 100%, so yeah, but I also know how difficult it is, at least for me, to keep them healthy throughout the seedling process, so just in case I lose a couple, I always plant extra, so that I'll have at least a few tomato plants in my garden, even if it's not the amount that I wanted. But I'm planting like these Jubilee tomatoes, which are yellow, and I want to plant them simply because they're yellow, and I think that's really cool and will add some color to the garden. So hopefully I can actually grow those this year, because last year did not work out well. Okay, now I'm planting all my spices. I don't know if I'm even gonna put all of them into the garden, or maybe I might put some of them in a pot. I'm really not sure yet, but we're gonna try and grow 2 different kinds of dill, basil, thyme, and parsley. And I usually have no problem growing basil. Basil's super easy to grow. I don't really have a problem growing thyme either. It's mostly the parsley that's difficult for me to grow. And this will be the first time I'm trying to grow dill, so we'll see how that works. I feel like dill is more of a weed though, so I'm kind of scared to actually put it in the ground. Because my neighbor grew dill at one point, and it started growing in my garden too, and I was like, what's going on? So I think I might put it in a pot instead. Now, for my cucumbers and zucchini, I kind of forgot to plant it when I was supposed to. I had it on the calendar and I got a notification, but it like totally flipped my mind, so I'm planting it a couple of weeks late. We'll see how this works out. Hopefully it will grow enough for me to plant it into the garden in a couple of weeks, but we'll see. And I haven't really been able to grow zucchini like successfully, and that is my goal. I really want zucchini, so it seems like broccoli might be out of the picture, so I want to grow zucchini. And it's not an issue with the seedlings, it's an issue when transplanting. Anyway, I put them in these big yogurt containers because when they germinate, they pretty much shoot up really quickly and get really tall. So it just makes more sense to plant them in a container that's tall already. So that is the end of me starting my seeds inside. Any other seeds I'll be planting will be directly sowed into my garden once the ground outside is workable. And a good tip that I heard like someone on TikTok say is once you start seeing dandelions outside, the soil, like the ground outside, is workable and ready to be planted in, which I think is a really good tip. So yeah, if you see dandelions outside, you can start planting outside. And that usually corresponds with the last spring frost date. Alright, this is my first seedling check-in. So it's been a couple weeks, as you can see by the date stamp. But we have our strawberries. They're looking very cute. Don't be alarmed by the like white stuff on top of the dirt. That is mold, I guess. But I promise it goes away on its own. I don't know how, it kind of just does. Like, I just leave it and it just goes away. But as you can see, the first little leaves, the Catalina leaves, which looks so cute. So like this black rectangular container here, I ended up planting more strawberry seeds with more strawberry seeds that I had in my fridge. And I just put them in there. So that's where the 3 varieties come from, because you only saw me plant 2 varieties, but this is the 3rd that I ended up planting like a few days later, because I saw the strawberries in my fridge and I was like, huh, let me just plant more, because I love strawberries, so if I could have like a plethora of them, that'd be great. Our marigolds are also looking very good. Even though I planted a lot of marigold seeds, only a few of them germinate. I don't know why that is. Because like I want so many marigolds, but then I can only ever grow like a couple. That's why I just plant so many, because I know I can only grow a couple. But they're doing well. The broccoli has not sprouted yet, so we'll see in a couple more weeks. I find that the broccoli germinates like kind of slow. Alright, now the video is really done. I just thought it'd be fun to add in the first seedling check-in. So I'm thinking the next gardening journey video will either be seedling care or garden prep. I'm not sure which one yet, we'll see. Okay, bye!